Hello there everyone, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium. Now I'm not waving at you today because I don't want to use my hands, so I'm going to do an elbow bump. Hello everyone, hello. Bumping elbows instead of waving. Okay, so enough of being silly. I have ummed and ahed for quite a while on how to present this actual project, and I'm still not quite sure, so I'm just going to play it by ear and see how it goes. So basically we talked on group a while back about different projects that people wanted to do, and one of the things that came up was there were a few people who wanted to store love letters. Now unfortunately I don't have many of them. I think I've had three love letters in my entire life. So to make a journal just for 3 love letters was a bit, maybe not. Excuse me. Now I did see an idea which inspired me to make a journal that could actually accommodate those love letters. And this was the idea that I came up with. But as I say, because I've only ever received 3, I then started to think of different alternatives of what you could use the journal for. I also then came up with this idea. So I'm going to talk to you about the ideas first, I think, and then you need to sit and have a think about how you're going to apply this idea to something that you may want to use it for. Okay, so that's my thought process so far. I'll show you this big one because it kind of gets it out the way. Now I've got 2 of these on my shelf. So this one has got designer's ephemera in it, as it says, and I've got a ring pull so that I can pull it out. But basically I had loads of printed ephemera off other people's digital kits, and I sat one night, well, over several nights, and I've cut them all out. And basically what I've done is I've made this with really big envelopes in because I had loads of them, and I've put different people's ephemera in each of the envelopes. So one's got Arty Amazing, this one's got Ephemera's Vintage Gardening, this one's Tsunami Rose, this one has got envelopes in an envelope. So I've got different. So that's Nick the Booksmiths, that's Kirsty Art Designs, those are my lace papers. So you kind of get the idea. So I've used envelopes in it, and I've stored some of my ephemera in. So it stands up and that sits on my shelf. Okay, so that's one idea using this technique that I'm going to show you. I need to find a space to put it. Hang on. Yeah. Okay, that's gone behind me. So this was the original one that I made, and I ended up putting a variety of different papers in to show what you could use it for instead if, like me, you don't have many love letters. Yeah, play the violin, poor Carol. So this was the journal that I made, as I say, and I put a variety of envelopes in here, coffee dyed papers, coffee dyed card, more envelopes, a glassine bag. I haven't done anything with it, I just wanted to show different types of pages that you could put in. And it's a no-sew journal. So if you really don't like sewing, then this could be the journal for you. Now then, this is a glassine envelope. And this was one of the things that I thought, if you didn't want to actually attach your love letters in here, then you could attach glassine envelopes or ordinary envelopes and put each of your love letters within the glassine bag, and then you could write about the contents Okay, so that was my thinking for the love letters. Here I've got a small brown paper bag. So that's held down by a paper clip, and obviously that will then open up and you can put stuff inside of there. Here I've attached a long ledger sheet, a vintage ledger sheet, so that unfolds and you can utilise the sheet that way. This was a digital kit and I've made it into a pocket so that you can actually insert things inside the pocket itself. Another envelope. So this could be the love letter envelope, you know, that you've attached. Or as I say, you could use the envelope as a storage area. And then I still think that you need coffee dyed papers in it if you're going to do it as a love letter journal, so that you can write the story of what that love letter was about. So any additional information. Here I've attached a coffee dyed paper that opens up this way. This was another paper bag, but instead of folding it down, I chopped it down so that it's smaller. Another envelope, some tags and some graph paper. So I'm going to show you how to make the basic journal. But you will need to think first about what you're going to use it for, because that will determine the size of cover that you need. Okay, so I'm hoping that this all makes sense at the moment. If you're going to use it as a love letter journal, then you'll need to measure your envelopes and you'll need to measure the biggest one. So just as a for instance, this envelope here, so this envelope, get the right way around, oh, there we go, is 5 by 7 1/4. So you will need to think about the size of the cover in relation to the size of the biggest envelope that you want to include. If you're not using it as a love letter journal and adding your love letters, and you just want to make it as an ordinary journal, then you need to determine the height and the width of your page size. All right. If you're going to use paper bags only, then you need to think of what size they are. If you're going to do it like I did with this one, with the really big envelopes, then I knew that it needed to be, the cover will need to be bigger than these really big envelopes. Okay, so you need to do a little bit of forward thinking and forward planning before you can actually start. But as I say, if you're doing it as for love letters, then you might want to consider having an ordinary envelope that you can then put your treasured love letter inside. You could use glassine envelopes, you could use glassine bags, you could actually put pages in and then stick your love letters to the actual pages. It's entirely up to you, but you need to go through that little bit of a thought process first. All right, let's get down to a little bit of nitty-gritty. I got to thinking about what I could actually use this journal for, and when I thought about it, I've received over the years, because I've been doing this a very long time, over the years I have received some really lovely notes. One lady even wrote me a poem years ago, and all of these letters and notes are shoved in a box underneath my bed, gathering dust. So I thought it would be a lovely way of being able to store them inside one of these types of journals. So what I've decided that I'm going to do is I'm going to make some envelopes using my envelope punch board, and I'm going to use up some of my 12 by 12 papers. So the size of the envelopes that I'm going to make is this very last one here on this list, and the card size will be the size of the page, so to speak. So if you can see this, so this is 6 by 8.5 inches. So that's going to be my page size, and the paper size that I'm going to need to be able to make that size envelope is 11.5 by 11.5. Hence the 12 by 12 papers. So my cover will need to accommodate a 6 by 8.5 inch envelope, and that's what's going to determine the size of the cover for my actual journal. Now I want to keep it all fairly neutral, and so I'm going to use, when I was looking through my paper pads, I came across this particular paper pad that I've had for a very long time, and I've not used it for a while, and that's because there was quite a few papers in here that I really liked and didn't want to use them, you know, as we do. So I thought it was about time I used some of them up. So it's called Falling Leaves, and it's a first edition paper pad. That's the back cover of it. And as I say, there's some really lovely ones in here. So like this one is pearlized, and some of them are plain on the back. Some of them have got, I mean, look at that. How lovely is that one? See, can't use it. I don't want to use it. Some of them have got, you know, printed patterns on the back. So this one's a pearlized butterfly one, but they're all sort of fairly neutral. And so I thought it was about time that I used some of these papers up. I also found this paper pad when I was having a look through, and I've lost the front cover, but on the back it says it's a Santoro London one. So it's one of the Gorgeous Girls paper packs. And again, some really lovely neutral papers in here. And this is one of my favourites because it's got text in the background of it. So I thought I could use some of those up as well. So I will be showing you how I'm going to make these envelopes up in the following video, but I just wanted to show you how I am determining the size of the cover. So as I say, my page size, or the envelope size, is going to be 6 by 8.5, so the cover will need to accommodate that. So I'll see you in a little bit. So what I'm actually going to use for my cover is this big cereal box, and I wanted to use a box that had this wide side to it. Okay, so if you imagine the box is made up, you can see, so it's this side here, so it's really quite deep, so that I can get more pages into it. All right, so this will act as the front, this will act as the spine, and that will act as the back. And I know that I've got plenty there so that I can actually chop it down to size, because it's really long and it's really wide. First thing I'm doing is I'm just cutting off all the extra little tabs and flaps and I can straighten up my edges later on my paper trimmer, but it's too big to put in as it is. So if I get rid of all of these bits first. Okay, so that's all the excess bits cut off. I know that I'm going to keep this bit as it is, and I know that I want my front cover, this part to be this part here to be 6.5 inches wide. So I set that up. Ooh. And I'm going to sit this first crease line here next to the spine on 6.5 inches, which is about there. And then I can get rid of that bit. In fact, I can keep that and make a tag. Now I'm going to do the same on this side. So if I spin it over, line this part of the spine up with my 6.5 inches. Now, as I say, yours might be different, and you can use whatever packaging you want. It's entirely up to you. Now I know that the height that I want is 9 inches, so I'm going to spin it round, and again, look, it's not going to fit all in my paper trimmer, so I'm going to fold that bit over, and it's going to be maybe a bit too thick for my blade to go through on this kind of paper trimmer. So I'm going to just do the best that I can. Ooh, it might have gone through. I think it did. Yeah, it did. Not done my blade much good. So now I've got the start of the size of cover that I'm going to need. So the paper that I've actually chosen is 2 sheets of graphic 45. I want this to be quite a classy looking cover, so I need to determine how I'm actually going to cover this, and height wise I know it's going to fit in, and width wise it will go around, let me just think of this. So I've got a bit extra overhanging here that I can tuck behind. That will go across there and the spine. And then with my second sheet, I could go over the spine again and to the back. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to overlap these 2 pieces of paper. So I'm going to cut this first sheet so that it's 1 inch longer here and it's 1 inch longer there. So that's the height first. So we know that this is 9 inches, so I need to cut this to 10. Now, in terms of what width I want to cut, I want to do the width of the front cover and the spine, which measures just short of 9.5 inches. So again, if I add a 1/2 inch border on, so if I cut that to 10 inches wide, then I know that I'm covering all of that. So I need one piece that measures 10 inch by 10 inch. So I've done my 10 inch that way, so I now need to do my 10 inch this way. Now I'm going to stick this piece on now before I cut my second piece. And I'm going to use my Tombow glue. So I'm going to put it down this spine area here. Because one of the things you need to be careful of is sometimes the fronts of cereal boxes can be quite shiny, and so therefore it doesn't always take the glue very well. In that instance, if you find that that might happen with the card that you're using, then you can actually put some gesso paint on it, or you can actually sand it down with a very fine sandpaper to just take some of that shine off it to be able to make the glue stick. I've also found as well in the past that the likes of an all-purpose glue, like a Yoo-hoo glue or a Bostik all-purpose glue, that works really well on this type of cardstock. So I'm going to lay that down there. Make sure I've got it the right way up if it's directional. Don't think it matters so much. I think I prefer it that way. Okay, so we'll put that on there. We know that we're talking about a 1/2 inch border around the sides. Now, if you want to mark that on your paper first, then you can do. And I know that this seam is going to end along the edge of my paper. So I've got that in about the right place. Got a little bit of seepage there. And you can use your bone folder to work your way over the card to make sure that it's got a really good contact, or you could use a roller. Where's my roller gone? Oh, I had to reach down for that. So you could use a roller. I'm careful with the roller because it can push the glue out the sides too easily sometimes. So okay, make sure I've got a nice firm adhesion on the front. So showing you from the back side of it, you can now see the card that's extending beyond. So I now need to cut another piece from my graphic 45 papers that again measures 10 inches by 10 inches. I've cut my second piece of my graphic 45 paper out, 10 by 10. Excuse me. And I've also folded over very carefully this front cover here so that I can see where the edge of the spine is, so that I can now flip this over and I can place glue all over the back. Now you might think that I'm being excessive putting graphic 45 on top of graphic 45. The thing is that because cereal box card is not very thick or strong, having that double thickness of the decorative paper on here on the spine, I'll end up with 3 layers, which means that the spine is a little bit more supported with that extra paper on top. So, excuse me, throat not so great today. I know it's not coronavirus, it's just my my bronchitis is playing me up a bit today. I think because of the change in the weather, because it's quite warm here at the moment, lovely and sunny and quite warm, so I think the change in the weather has affected it. I mean, I'm fine, you know, but it just becomes a bit awkward talking sometimes. So I'm just putting glue all over that spine area, and then on the edge where that crease is, because I want to make sure it's got a good contact on the crease, and then all over this back cover area. If you're using thinner paper, you might want to see about painting your glue on rather than doing the wiggly lines like I'm doing, because through thinner paper these wiggly lines will actually show through. Excuse me, because it's thicker paper that I'm using, it won't be quite so visible. Make sure I've got my loopy-loos going the same way. Yes. And the other thing is that I will be adding lace on the spine as well, so that it definitely won't show where the paper overlaps. So I think I'm okay with that. So again, I'm going to press this with my bone folder, of which I'll put it down somewhere. Where did I put it? There it is. It was hiding. So I'm going to press this with my bone folder, make sure I've got a good contact, and then I'm going to leave it for a little bit. So I'm going to go off and make a brew, make sure that that glue is completely set before I do any more work on it, and I'll come back in a little while and show you the next step. Okay, see you in a minute. Bye for now. My glue is now set and I'm going to show you the next steps, but I just thought I'd better tell you that the paper that I've used on the front here is the Love Notes paper, and I've taken it from the 12 by 12 Patterns and Solids pack. So it was this one here that I've used. Excuse me. I thought if you wanted to do it as a love letter journal, then this might be an ideal paper pack for you to use, just as a thought. So I thought I'd better tell you which papers I was using. So those are the ones that I've used for my front cover. I'm using something different for the inside though. but I'll come to that later on. Okay, so now I'm going to cut my 4 corners off, and I'm going to leave a slight gap between the edge of the card and the angle that I'm going to cut the paper off. Now, in the previous video that I've done on my YouTube channel, I told you about the little trick of sticking these triangles on here, so that when you fold these papers over, if there is a slight gap, it helps to cover them up. So I will be attaching mine in a little bit, but I'm going to cut my 4 corners first. The other thing that I'm going to do at this stage as well is where this spine area is, I'm just going to snip into the papers and do a tiny little triangle. So I just show you that sort of size triangle. So it's a real tiny one, but it just helps to alleviate the pressure on the paper when it comes to closing your journal cover. So I'll just snip those off there. And then I'm going to stick these 4 triangles in place as well. The next step then is to fold each of these sides over. And again, due to the thickness of the card, or the thickness of the paper that I'm using, I'm just going to burnish it down with my bone folder to give me a nice creased edge, and then open it back out and move on to the next one. And I'm going to do that around all 4 sides. Folded over and burnished each of those edges, so I'm now going to glue them in place. So you don't need to watch me doing this bit, do you? So I'll come back in a little while when I've glued these all in position. I've folded over all the edges now of that paper onto the inside cover, and I used my bone folder to just reiterate those creases down there, down that spine area, because it will help then to prevent cracking when I come to folding this in, so that it makes the actual journal cover. So I've already done all of that, and so as you can see, this is the cover now of my journal. That's the width of my spine, of which that is, because I don't think I told you that bit, did I? My spine area is 3 inches wide. So yeah, so that's my journal cover all done. So if you get to this stage, and in the next video I'll talk you through all the bits and pieces, but you, as I said in the beginning, you need to determine what you want to use this journal for, whether you want to put your love letters in it, whether you want to use it as a genealogy journal like I'm doing with the pages from that book, whether you just want it as a bog standard journal, whether you want it to be a storage space for your ephemera. You need to determine what size your pages are going to be first, or what size your envelopes are, to be able to then work out the size of the cover. Alright, so if you get to that stage first, and in the next video I'll talk to you about the inside and how we start to go about putting it all together. So I'll see you all again in the next video. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.